from the top. Hello, I am the cello doll. A lot of you here know me. If anyone's new and discovering this, welcome. I'm here to talk about cello tips, any successes that you want to share in your practice room. I would love to share those. Any questions you have, any frustrations you have. I did have a question in Instagram about what brand of electric cello do I use, and the answer to that is the NS Design. I use the NXTA model. They have, I believe, 3 different electric cello models, and the reason I chose that model was it had a lot of positive reviews about the tone quality, something that seemed very versatile and could still maintain a nice rich tone quality despite being an electric instrument. You know, it was very important to me to have something that could have a really good neutral sound before adding effects and distortion and things like that, because gotta love that distortion. And also, you don't need a tailpiece. For those of you who don't know, the tailpiece is this metal bar that holds up the cello while I sit with it. And for the NS, they actually make a body strap where it's actually attached to my torso and I can walk around. You know, as a cello player, that's such a novel idea to us, walking around while we play. So I thought that was something really cool for future performances to use, which is why I was really drawn to the NS. And I love it. We have people from Paraguay. We have people watching from Brazil. I think this is incredibly amazing. It's wonderful how the internet can connect us from all around the world. I see someone from Argentina. This is so exciting. Hello. Hello, everyone. I just want to check Shelly. You guys get to see my geared pegs. I just got these last month, and this is their live stream debut. You'll see me too. You don't really hear it drastically, but hold on, let me to get alternative tuning now. I don't have to worry about my pegs slipping. It is such a relief. So I love my geared pegs. And yeah, does anybody have any questions or any tips with cello playing? Also, anything you want to ask about the music industry, being a musician on social media? I just premiered a new music video, so if you have not seen that, I would highly recommend it. It is on my YouTube channel. It is a cover of Burn, Butcher, Burn from the Witcher series on Netflix. It's an incredible song, this really angsty ballad, and it sounds really awesome on cello just because the range of the song is so close to the instrument itself. I think it was really well suited for cello. If you have any questions about filming music videos, you know, I will take any of it. I will absolutely take any questions you dolls have. Of course, cello-centric is great, but it doesn't have to be about cello. It can be about the music industry, things like that. So I'm going to keep my eyes out on these chats for any questions you dolls might have. Ooh, we have a question. Yay, an extension exercise. So you guys are going to get a little spoiler. I actually filmed on Sunday a YouTube vlog specifically about cello extensions in first position. So that's going to be edited and posted next month, early next month in February. So I'll give you a sneak peek now on some of the tips I talk about in the video. So extensions. So I'm going to focus right now on first position extensions, and I'm going to start with the beginning of a D major scale. So this is normal first position, starting my D major scale, 0, 1, F sharp, G. But what if I need to play a G sharp? And we call this a high fourth finger. So that's a G sharp. And we call that high 4, and that's an extension. Another way we can do an extension is a lower first finger, a low first finger. So those are the two most common extensions. I need my fourth finger to be higher or my first finger to be lower. No matter which one it is, the extension happens with a space between 1 and 2. This is the hand shape that will happen regardless of what kind of extension it is. And I think calling it a high 4 or putting it in the sheet music as an X4 is very misleading, because it immediately sounds like, oh, the pinky has to be higher, but your pinky's the smallest finger. So that doesn't make a lot of sense, and I often see beginners trying to strain their pinky, but no matter what with an extension, this is where the spacing happens. So I'm going to play the F sharp again, the G sharp again, and you're going to see the spacing here, even though the goal is a high 4. So as a result of that reach, my fourth finger is already high. So hence the extension. So when you do this extension, it's really important that your thumb follows the second finger. As you make that space, your thumb slides down the neck. You can see it kind of better on Instagram right now, but I'm going to turn to the side on YouTube so you guys can see it on YouTube as well. That the thumb is going to open up as I do the extension. So it's really important that your thumb slides. And so I know that was kind of an explanation and you were asking about an exercise. So I'm going to give you some exercises. You can do just what I've been doing, kind of. I recommend doing it just sliding, practicing that opening first without the bow. And then you can also do it in the air away from the instrument. And a big way to do that is point your finger up. Well, point all your fingers up. And then curl 2, 3, and 4. Straight. Curl 2, 3, and 4. Straight. And your pointer finger is going to want to follow suit. It might collapse a little bit. So this is going to help you to get isolated finger motor skills. Because if you turn it to the side and you land, that's your extension shape. This, turn to the side and land. That's your extension shape. So those are some exercises you can do. The training your fingers to bend and have a straight pointer, as well as the opening up on the instrument, opening up between 1 and 2. And I really honestly think one of the best exercises for extensions is to do it slowly. And so pick your type of extension. Let's say we're going to do a high 4. And pick your string. Let's do the G string. So I want to do a high 4 on a G string. And mentally or aloud, I think it's awesome to talk aloud in your practice room to verbalize your intentions. No one's going to hear you. I verbalize my intentions on social media, and lots of people see me. And I'm fine with that. So if you're alone in your practice room, you can talk, you can sing, you can do whatever you want. Okay, so we said high 4, G string, and I'm opening, I'm sliding the thumb. So going for the 2, open up, slide the thumb, and then let the first finger relax. You don't have to hold it there. You can let it come in a little bit, but let it be comfortable, not pointing up close to the string. And then the 4th finger is where it has to be. Okay, so I'm gonna do that again. I slide the thumb, I open up the hand. The first finger relaxes, and then the 4th finger is where it has to be. So I think kind of going through it really slowly for the mechanics of it is a really good exercise. And then you can kind of make up your own little song, little melody using that hand shape and practice different finger combinations. So again, this isn't something super formal like Popper Etude number 5, play that 20 minutes a day. You know, this is more of an exploration because I find going slow with extensions is important. If you move too fast, you might end up straining your hand, or your thumb isn't quite moving right, and you're just struggling to get the hand shape right or the note in tune, and you end up creating a lot of tension for your hand. So I really think just playing it slowly, feeling out the extension, understanding exactly what is happening is a great idea. Also, playing scales that involve your extensions, and the vlog I'm going to post in February. In February, we end the vlog by doing some scale play-alongs. So some scales you can work on that are only in first position if you're a beginner, that use extensions. 2 octaves of D major, the lower octave of D uses extensions. A major and B flat major. So those are 3 scales you can easily practice as a beginner cellist and learn more about scales. Now I'm assuming beginner. The person who contributed this question on Instagram, let me know if you're intermediate or advanced and you need more tips. I don't want to generalize anyone's needs. So this is all fresh in my head because I just made the vlog. So let me see if I have any more requests, but that's kind of a quick overview and a teaser on a vlog that is coming early next month. Also, I got kind of a kudos emoji on Facebook. Thank you. I think that's what it is. I think it's like finger snaps or something. Thank you. Let's see. Thanks. I am currently in D major. That's it. Yes, exactly. D major scale, the bottom octave. So we start on C. I mean, we're not going to start on C, but that's our C string. So this is how we find D. If our open string is C, 1 has to be D, right? The next finger, a whole step, the next letter in the alphabet, C to D. So I do the extension because we need an F sharp. So D, E, F sharp, G. I got to bring my hand back to the A, open again, B, C sharp, D. So the first octave of D major, you have 2 high 4 extensions. Don't worry, again, there's going to be a vlog coming to YouTube soon, and I put a little sheet music at the bottom and things like that so you can follow along. Let me see if we have any more questions. Any more questions? Oh, someone just said something really nice. Stay beautiful. Oh, thank you. You all should stay beautiful. That's very kind. Thank you. They wrote a very pretty poem in the Instagram chat for those of you who can see it. That was very nice. Thank you. So, do we have any other quick requests for Cello Tip Tuesday? If not, I'm going to talk about some topics I've been discussing in my lessons lately until I see a new question. So, another thing that I've been talking about with my students is projection. And projection is when you want to have your sound carry and, let's say, fill up a hall or fill up a room. So that is what projection is. And projection is super, super important because you want people to be able to hear you, you know? And especially if you play with a pianist or you play with an orchestra at your conservatory, projection is super important. So one of the big ways to project that was so helpful for me to learn is the concept of using a lot of your natural body weight. And that happens in our bow arm because you can, if you play with too much effort and you have to crank out this big sound over a huge piano, you can hurt yourself. You know, instrument playing is no joke. Injuries can happen, and it's really sad when it does. So, a way, kind of your toolkit for projecting your sound is, first off, your bow placement. So, where are you vertically in the bow in terms of vertically on the string? And if you want to project, you want to be closer to the bridge. So if you're playing something that's really loud, I wouldn't go lower than 50%, like halfway. So stay in this half of the string. And so we talked about bow placement. That's a tongue twister. And then bow hair use. So I'm rotating my bow this way, like this. And if the stick is facing away from me, that means I'm using more of my hair. You see, if I tilt it with the stick facing me, I'm on the tippy toes of my bow hair. So you want the stick to be a little more away from you, and that happens by rotating your wrist or your fingers. So you can see, and what you could do is you could loop your thumb into the bow and do some rocking. Don't rock with this wrist. Keep this wrist still and try to rotate it here. So that's going to kind of pivot your hair to see how much you want to use. And then, you know, focus if you do open strings as part of your warm-up, everyone says do scales, do scales. Of course you should do scales, but you should also try to do open strings. And you can take open strings and you can say, today I'm going to work on projection, or tomorrow I'm going to do spiccato open strings, or I'm going to try to do up bow staccato open strings. So open strings don't have to be something static or not interesting. You can use open strings for so many things. So again, you can use your open strings to practice this idea. Put your bow on the string. And the final, well, there's two more pieces. Weight, I mentioned earlier. So if your bow arm elbow is low, that means most likely, yeah, my weight is in that string. If your bow elbow is up high, something is being suspended in air. And think about the power of this much weight versus, you know, your source of weight, the weight going from your back into your arm, you're kind of cutting it off here. If it's lower, it can make its way to the bow. Also, if your elbow is lower than your wrist, you have kind of an anchor for your bow hand into the string, right? It's kind of like if you're on a ship and you throw down an anchor, right? You want to dock on shore, you throw down your anchor and your anchor floats. You can't dock the ship if you have an anchor that's floating. So your bow is kind of like your anchor, and it gives you your weight and contact with the string. That's very important. My students learn very quickly. I love visual analogies like that. So, someone wrote a comment on Instagram. 80% of cellists do it wrong. They don't use the weight of the arm. Most of them push. I do agree that it's a mature concept that should be taught earlier. I definitely know I needed it much earlier than when I learned this concept. I don't know about 80%. It'd be very interesting. I don't know if anyone's ever done like a cello upbringing study of when certain skills are commonly introduced into cello playing. I will reply by saying the idea of pushing, I like the idea of a push actually for an up bow. You push because the force comes, if you're at the tip, the force is coming from behind the tip and you push the tip forward. I think the word that I actually dislike more than push is press. I don't like the word press. So I love that you contributed that comment. Thank you. I love having discussions like this when I live stream. The word I don't like to use is the idea of press, and I think what you meant on Instagram is they push down. They try to push into the string. They push down. I think of pushing as a horizontal motion, but I agree. A lot of cellists think they have to push into the string. But if your elbow's low, when I used to teach younger kids, back when I was local, I'm in a new city now. Woo! Viva Las Vegas! And I love it here. It's been really fun. But back where I used to live and I taught more local students, I would have my bow sink into the string and I would have the kid try to come and pick it up and they couldn't. And I'm not pushing. So it was really fun to see their eyes like in amazement, like, oh my gosh, it's like really glued in there. So the lower elbow is like your anchor. And that is so important for pretty much a lot of cello playing, if not all cello playing. Maybe if you want to do like an up bow, flashy spiccato, you might need to adjust. But in general, especially for projection, that low elbow will help you get into the string. And so we talked about, summarize because I talk a lot. Halfway, at least, if not closer to the bridge, bow weight, and then using your hair. Don't be playing on the tippy toe. The final thing is bow speed. Bow speed. And if you have a faster bow speed with more weight, that's good. Sometimes though, if I need to play a really, really long note, like a, you know, I might use a slower bow to really sustain it. But if I play a melody, so I'm going to make up a melody and I'm going to do everything I just said except the bow speed. So I'm going to do a slow bow speed and then a more fast bow speed. So do you hear how tight the tone is? It's kind of tight. Sounds a little like a little squished. And that means the bow's a little too slow. And this is a flowing melody, so I can use a little more bow by having a faster speed. Now, that doesn't mean I speed up the tempo. It's a huge difference. So I'm going to do the same melody. I hope I can remember it. One more time. And the tone is more open. Because I use more bow speed. Now, again, I'm not changing the tempo, and to really exaggerate this idea, because I often tell students, use more bow speed, and then they just play a little faster, and it's like, well, now we're in a totally different tempo, so we gotta put on the brakes and kind of go backwards a little bit. So if I'm playing, so I just played it 3 ways, 3 different bow speeds, with the last one being the slowest, and the tempo didn't change. So that is something. It flows better. Absolutely. Yes, it's okay to say that. Great contribution. Yes. The idea of a flowing sound, I believe, means you're hearing more ringing in the tone. You're hearing more rings. And that kind of makes the sound flow and expand. So those are kind of my tips for projecting. The most important one, I think, being getting in touch with your low elbow. And I often tell students, like, think of a flamingo arm where you have a perky wrist, because if you're too low, you're gonna get lower strings involved. So have your wrist and your fingers be a little perkier, lifting the bow up a little bit, and that's going to prevent you from scraping a lower string. And so that's the first thing. Work on your low elbow, and you can work on these in your open strings, in your scales. Again, play a scale and don't just always play it some medium generic quarter note speed. Take a scale and say, I'm going to work on my projection, or I'm just going to work on my low elbow. 1 scale for my low elbow, 1 scale for my bow placement, so not playing at the fingerboard. My 2nd scale, I'm going to focus on that. My 3rd scale, I'm going to experiment with my bow tilt. And my 4th scale, oh no, bow speed. Bow speed, that was the last one. So, low elbow, the hair tilt, your bow speed, and your bow placement. Okay? So those are kind of the tips I have for projecting on the instrument. And trying to think of an example of a real life concert piece. Well, I'll give you two examples. Let's get into projection. Why not? But if any of you dolls have a pressing question, please put it in the chat and I'll immediately switch, because these videos are really for your benefit. So if you have a question you've been itching to ask about your practice time, about the music industry, please put it in the chat. So some repertoire examples. My favorite concerto, the Shostakovich concerto. I just took a bow to the face on a live stream. It's fine. It just tapped my glasses, so it's not a big deal. Shostakovich Cello Concerto. I love that piece. It's my favorite. It's my favorite piece. There's a part in the middle. You know, it's not. I think it's a. There it is. I think it's been a hot second since I've played that, but if anyone knows, it's gonna bother me all day. Is it a C sharp or a D? But right there, these notes. You know, you have an orchestra roaring behind you, just roaring and going to town. And, oh. Okay, I got a question. Really quick, I'll get to your question. So for that, you know, bow speed is very important because they're only quarter notes. That's really important. And as I play the same note, I don't want my bow to be sliding around. Like, that's not going to help me project. And if you think about it, your bow is the contact point that makes the string ring. So if I stay here, the string's going to be ringing and ringing and ringing and ringing and ringing. If I start the activation here, but then I slide down and I have to reactivate, and I slide up here and I have to reactivate, that's why a sliding bow, your sound is not going to carry far if your bow slides around. And also, Shostakovich is a really long piece. I don't want to burn myself out in any part of a concerto, really. I mean, you might go all out for the last page because you know you're going to be done soon. But that's another reason. In something like that, where it's like a 40-minute piece, you know, I got to pace my energy. I can't let it all go because this melody's really loud and fun, and you want to make it easy to play. So another example, and this kind of goes into the question I got on YouTube, what's the most cliche cello piece? Like Fur-Elise level, so like in piano terms, like Fur-Elise, orchestra excerpts are excluded. Well, one of them, I mean, I don't want to, the word cliche usually has a negative connotation to it. And I never want to think of a cello piece as having a negative connotation. So I will say the most popular, well-known, that you might hear in a lot of TV or movies, a big one is the Swan. And that was the piece I was going to talk about next. So the Swan, it's not a big, powerful piece. It's about a swan. So unless you have a really big, super swan, it's a big squawker, like they're not known as being these mighty, intense creatures, but you still want to project. And now this is a little trickier because the Swan, it's like mezzo forte, mezzo piano. My favorite piece, yay! It's a beautiful piece to have as your favorite. So for this one, having bow control is so important. Again, this idea of bow speed is really going to help you project despite it being soft. So having a piece that can project when it's soft is very important, because you don't want it to sound like so I'm purposefully getting soft at the tip. And this is probably my final secret tip for projection, is getting comfortable playing at the tip. So you want to lean into the tip, and I'm helping out. This is the only exception to my low elbow rule. My only exception is I lift the elbow a hair so I can get, oh, you can't really see it on Instagram. Hold on. I swear I'm going to change my setup so I don't have to do this. So I lift the elbow so I get above the tip a little bit. I get a little leverage on the tip by lifting a hair. The only exception, if I do that, when I return to the frog, I come back in. I make sure the elbow swings in nice and cozy. So I don't leave it up. Don't do that. If you leave the elbow up, you just lost all that weight we talked about. So with the Swan, with more delicate pieces, you can get more projection by being sure you sustain at the tip, and therefore you can project. So kind of leaning into the tip, getting that extra leverage so you don't have a natural softening or diminuendo as you bow out. Some other famous cello pieces that you hear a lot in movies or TV commercials. Of course, the Bach, everyone's favorite, the Bach G major prelude. Of course, everyone knows that piece. I mentioned the Swan already. I think those are two of, honestly, some of the most famous ones in terms of just solo cello. I think Elgar Concerto is pretty famous. That's one of the more, I know Dvorak is amongst cello players. We all want to play Dvorak someday, but I think Elgar Concerto is kind of, I think, the most famous non-classically trained cello concerto someone would recognize. I think. I mean, I've heard it in a couple movies, and you know, cello concertos, since concertos are so vast, they're not often included in movies. I just think because they're like 40 minute pieces. I mean, obviously, I would want to practice that and really get into the nuances, nitty-gritty of it. But I just wanted to quickly play it in case any of you ever heard that and were like, oh, I didn't know that was a cello concerto. More questions. Let me check here. Let me check. Oh, I think we're good. On YouTube, how can I practice cello properly when I have some stiffness problems with my right arm? I'm not sure what it is. It's not diagnosed, but I feel like it affects my bowing a lot. Stiffness in the right arm. Do you have a specific spot in the right arm you feel the stiffness? Like, is it more in the palm, in the thumb? This is a common place to feel tension. Also this part, the underneath your forearm, is a very common place to feel tension. I mean, honestly, I'm not sure if you were here for my start of the projection talk, but having a low bow arm, I sound like a broken record, but it is so important. It is. It truly is so important because, you know, it prevents any artificial suspension. You know, having the shoulder, I had this problem for years where I would artificially suspend my right bow arm shoulder. That was a huge problem for me when I was growing up. It was awful, and I would get these horrible chest pains as a kid, and I had no idea what was going on. I was like, what is wrong with my body? Why am I getting these chest pains? And my muscles were just tired. They were just so tired from holding this so much. So I tell my students about the shrug, the natural shrug. You know, when you go, I don't know, do it. Don't bring it up so fast because you might hit your peg box, but lift your shoulders easy and then let it go. Like, dramatically let it go. Have your bow by the floor. Oh, it's usually my thumb and wrist, but it goes up to my elbow. Okay, that is very common. That can be a very common place in your bow arm. And what I'm guessing, again, here's something I gotta say. I gotta put a disclaimer on this. I'm sorry. It's just one of these logistical things we have to do. I am not a medical professional. I don't have medical certification. I can only speak from my own experience and what I've heard talking with colleagues and other oh, you're new to the channel. Well, welcome. Welcome to the channel. But I just do have to say that, you know, if you feel super uncomfortable to the point where you're feeling consistent pain, that's a sign to go see a medical professional. And I don't think that's talked enough. Sorry, I'm glad you brought this up. I don't want to go off on a tangent for too long, but I think injury prevention is not talked about enough because I think people have some sort of embarrassment factor in going to a doctor. Like, I don't want to be having problems. And of course, I am not saying this applies to anybody specifically whatsoever, but I do think there's some sort of, oh, I'm fine. Everything's fine. I don't have to go see a doctor. But when somebody is having consistent pain, and I mean like pulling, and it hurts to put your hand in a fist, like, go see a professional help. Go see a doctor and, you know, kind of see what's going on. So I can give my practice room advice on how to feel more comfortable, but I'm in no way a professionally trained person to do a diagnosis, but I can give tips on how to be more comfortable, and I'm so happy to do that. But a lot of times, you know, we do have to put that disclaimer just to make sure we check all of our bases and all of that. So to be more relaxed, because what can happen is if you squeeze with the bow thumb, you know, your whole arm is interconnected. So these tendons are going to flow down your forearm I just realized my hand is too high for YouTube, sorry. If you squeeze here, the tension's gonna flow down the forearm. And because our whole hand and arm, everything is so interconnected. So it's very likely that, the pain might start here and then it starts going into here and parts of your palm. So here's a couple things you can do. And I think it sounds like you need to release your bow thumb. And unfortunately, that's something that can be difficult, releasing the bow thumb. And I really want to make a vlog about this. I think it's something in high demand that we need more literature on. But it is a very hard feeling to tap into. So I need to brainstorm before that happens, come up with some tricks. But something you can do a little bit is now we're not talking about tone projection anymore, obviously. But what I'm doing is, as I'm bowing, I'm coming up and down. I'm curling my fingers and releasing my fingers. If that's very difficult for you to do, some of you know this exercise already, but you loop your thumb in at the top, your left thumb, so you don't drop the bow. You have your bow hand shape. You flop the fingers. You curl the fingers. Flop the fingers. Curve the fingers. Flop the fingers. Curve the fingers, etc. And as I'm curling, my thumb is also curling underneath and releasing. I hope you can see this. I'm doing it upside down, which is very bizarre, and it's not going to be completely accurate because it's upside down. But my thumb is curling. So as you bow, just try to do that a few times as you bow, because you need to practice being comfortable with it. Now, that's not how we bow, but a lot of people, when I try, I just can't do it because your bow hand is stuck in this one shape. So the psychologically moving the bow and being able to do this, just practice that multitasking. That's the first step. Do it again with your open strings when you start. So again, low elbow, flamingo arm, that's important. And being able to get this finger and do it, I encourage you to do this away from your instrument. It's literally this. Curling your knuckles. I'm so glad someone just shared on YouTube. They saw a video about changing the bow hold and they thought it really helped them a lot. And they also suffered from similar thumb pain. It's a very common thing. So I'm so glad you found that video and it helped you. Oh, wonderful. Thank you for sharing on YouTube. So it's this motion, but it's in your bow hand shape. This idea of curling your knuckles, releasing your knuckles, curling your knuckles, releasing your knuckles. So it's that motion. Wait, are you leading the grip with your pinky? I don't know if I would call it leading the grip with my pinky. You brought up a big debate amongst cellists. Some people play with their pinky on top. Some people play with the pinky draped on the frog. I like to have my pinky draped on the frog. I think it has the bow more in my hand that way, and I have more control. I mean, I see people play Baroque or classical era, super fast spiccato, and they are very light and their pinky's riding on top, and that's great. I was taught this, to have the bow pinky. It's been a long day, guys. I'm sorry. It's been a long day. having the pinky in contact with the frog. So that could be something else. Are you trying to hold the bow way too high up on the frog? Make sure I feel the if I were to turn my bow hand over, the top wood is kind of hitting my top knuckle on my fingers. That's where the wood happens to hit my hand when I drape over. I'm draping over my first knuckle. So make sure the bow is nice and in your hand. You're not kind of suspended on your tippy toes. I will get to that. I just want to make sure there aren't any more questions on the Instagrams. Okay. Good. Okay. So, oh, you're most welcome. This person who was asking about the bow. 7 lessons into my journey. I'm a beginner. I'm thankful for all these tips. You're most welcome. I think on YouTube, I am going to include some links. I actually have some older videos about the bow hold and this whole concept I'm talking about, like weight and things like that, body weight. So I will include some links on the YouTube video if you want more video content to look at and more tips. It's a lot of what I've been saying, a lot of similar things. So yeah, that is a huge thing. And so making sure the thumb can bend is important. Also, sometimes you might need to reset your hand. And a way to do that is, have any of you, when you were beginners, did you ever play with your thumb underneath? I don't know, sometimes they don't really do it so much anymore. I know some people sometimes would have, especially little kids with smaller hands, do this. Having the thumb completely under the bow. And I wouldn't recommend doing this a lot because it's not proper bow technique, I will say that. And then putting it back. And trying to replicate the same thing. So having the bow underneath the metal piece. Doing a couple bows, immediately replacing. And doing the same thing. So that also can help. Just kind of tricking your thumb into doing something different with the bow. That can be very helpful. But again, these kind of bow hand push-ups, I can't recommend those enough. Those are very important. And don't just do it with the wrist. Don't cheat and flop with the wrist, because the whole point is to get your fingers flexible. So it's only the fingers that move. And make sure the thumb is one of them. I mean, I'm trying it with a locked thumb, and I can barely do it. But you might think, oh, my fingers are curling, I'm doing it. No, the thumb also has to be curving. So that's very important. This. And the great thing about these bow push-ups is you can do them like on the couch while you're watching TV during commercial breaks. All right, bow hand time during my TV commercial. Up, show's back on. Commercial, cello practice. Like, you can do that without taking out the cello and doing all these things. It's something you can very easily practice. Yeah, so that is kind of a really short explanation. There are so many, the final trick I will give you for, oh, I see. Hi, Frank. Hi, Frank. You're catching the tail end of Cello Tip Tuesday. Frank is a great friend of mine, Frank Bell. I love Frank. Great cellist, singer, songwriter, extraordinaire, multi-instrumentalist. Love you, Frank. If you guys don't know Frank Bell, go check out his music. Oh, he just finished practicing. You sure, Frank? You sure? You're not just saying that to seem like a good pupil? That's what I thought. I'm just kidding. Frank practices a lot. He's a part of the cello fam. We call it cello fam. The final thing I will tell you about bow thumb flexibility that will help is, again, these aren't great things for tone, unfortunately, because we're focusing on the motion. Remember, I talked about this. Now, yeah, of course, that's not that beautiful open string, but you gotta get used to the coordination and the psychological. I can move my fingers and bow at the same time, and everything's gonna be okay. So this is more of a kind of a specific exercise. The next one you can do is be at the frog and have your fingers go to the right, go to the left, curl, straight, curl, straight, curl, straight, curl, straight. Okay? Because the ultimate goal is you start with relaxed fingers at the frog, and I will end with this. You start with curled fingers at the frog, and as you bow, your fingers pick up. So I'm gonna actually turn, because I think my bow hand's going off camera and you can't see it. I start with loose, floppy, flat fingers. I pull the bow and I'm curling them. So by the time I get out, my fingers are curved. And then as I come back to the frog, they release and they relax, they drape. So at the frog, you drape, you bow, you pick up the fingers, and then they're curled. So curled at the tip, draped at the frog, curled at the tip, draped at the frog. And that's the end goal. But if you can't move your fingers at all, that's not going to happen. So that's why you have the frog to the shoe, going that way, going this way. And then my long bow with lots of curling. You almost have to become too used to doing it. You know, so yeah, you almost have to become too used to it by doing that. And then you can isolate it to using it at the frog and using it at the tip, using it at the down bow, using it at the up bow. So yeah, that's gonna definitely be a vlog someday. It's a very big topic, tension in your bow hand thumb. That's a huge topic. Hello, I'm getting some... Frank says, preach, practice makes permanent. Yes. For those of you who are just joining, unfortunately, the Cello Tip Tuesday is almost done. And yeah, sorry about that if you guys are just joining us. However, all of the Cello Tip, and that is where the streams are archived or on YouTube. And of course, as I'm saying that, okay, we're back. Good. Okay. I was like, you've been so good for an hour, YouTube and streaming. Thank you all so much for your contributions, for your sharing. I think it's so important to have a place in social media where we're comfortable about sharing what is hard for us, what is difficult for us. because that's how you're going to learn. That's how you're going to grow. And it's okay to say, you know, I'm having trouble with this. And, you know, like, for example, I played the opening bars of Elgar and I wish my tone was better there. You know, it's okay to say that. Granted, I pulled it out really quick and haven't practiced Elgar Concerto, but, you know, it's good to have a safe space where you can express these difficulties, and I will try to help as much as I can in your practicing. So again, thank you all so much for your sharing, for your contributions. And yeah, I'm grateful you guys joined today. Thank you so much. And again, live stream is available on YouTube, and we'll see you guys for the next live stream at the end of February. I do these at the end of the month for Cello Tip Tuesday live stream. All right, goodbye,